In this video, I want to talk about the question of what to do if you hear about a stock, a company that has a publicly traded stock that you want to invest in, and it's not a famous company. It's not one of the FANG stocks. It's not an Apple or an Amazon or a Tesla. It doesn't have a ton of analysts. You never hear about it on CNBC. I'm going to reveal an example of that in my own investing and how I decided to begin investing in a company that fits that description in today's video. I think when we're new to investing in single stocks into individual companies, there's one of two ways you can end up hurting yourself. The first is sometimes we feel like we have to reinvent the wheel, like we shouldn't invest in the big names that everybody already knows about because we're trying to get really great returns. We feel like we have to discover the hidden gems. The second is actually very common too, and that's we go the complete other direction and we feel like we can only invest in the top stocks in the market. We can only invest in the really safe companies that are huge like Apple and Amazon and Tesla, and that we should not even consider the smaller ones. In today's video, I want to talk about how sometimes in our lives we may have information that the general stock market doesn't have, that analysts out on Wall Street don't know anything about. And so this is getting into the realm of social arbitrage, which is a whole category of investing that was made popular by Chris Camillo and the Dumb Money guys. So if you're not familiar with them, you'll probably want to check them out because they talk all about this kind of investing and how it really shapes the decisions that they make. So as I share my example today, it's really, really important for you to understand I am not sharing this particular stock, this company with you for you to decide to invest in it. And you may, and that's totally fine, but that's not the purpose. The idea is to share the experience that I had with you so that you can look for opportunities that present themselves in your life, because they will if you have your eyes open. So before I tell you the stock, I'm going to tell you about how I learned about it. One of my friends has family members that deal with fibromyalgia, and that's something that I have no experience with. I don't even really understand all the ramifications of that illness, but he has several family members that have fibromyalgia. And several years ago, after having fibromyalgia for a long time, they found a doctor who was prescribing a combination of drugs that helped their symptoms go drastically lower. And it was really life-changing for them. And the doctor at the time was just using two different drugs that were already approved for other things. And he found when he prescribed them together in a particular formula, his patients had incredible results. So he began forming a company and getting the patents and the rights to prescribe these two medications in a specific way to form this new treatment. Now, over the years, these family members of my friend, this is just an anecdote, okay? This is not like they haven't passed any kind of clinical trials or anything, but at one point they went off the medication. And they said the impact was very dramatic, and they were willing to do just about anything to get back on that medication because it totally changed their quality of life. So this got my friend to the point where he wanted to meet the doctor. He wanted to talk to him about it. He wanted to learn about the medication and the company, and he was offered a chance to invest early before the company went public, and he took that opportunity. So when the company went public in the end of 2020, he knew I invested in stocks, and he said, Jeff, I'm not telling you to invest in this, but you might want to take a look. And so he shared his story with me. And so I made the decision very soon after they went public to go ahead when the stock price dropped down, because it was a very unknown stock. It still is today. the stock price dropped down from its IPO price, I started buying some. So I won't string you along. The company is called Virios Therapeutics, ticker symbol VIRI. And so this is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company that is seeking to pass all the regulations and everything to be able to sell this treatment that they are calling IMC-1 that is directed towards the treatment of the symptoms of illnesses caused by the herpes virus. And so although fibromyalgia is kind of the main point of why this medication was first found, it's not the only illness that it will help. And so one of the things I did to try and understand really the market opportunity here is if you Google how many people in the United States have fibromyalgia, about 2% of the adult population, about 4 million people have fibromyalgia. So it's not insignificant. It's millions of people. And why am I talking about Americans in particular? My understanding of pharmaceutical companies, you really need to be able to count on the company being able to make it or break it in America. A lot of times when medications go across our borders, companies are reducing the prices, which really affect the margins. And really, if a company can survive and grow and thrive on the number of Americans that are going to need this medication, then everything outside of America is just really going to help the stock and the company even more. So when I consider 4 million people in America, it's not insignificant, but it's also not as wide a pool of people that I would really hope for. But remember, I said this is not just for fibromyalgia. One of the other illnesses that this is going to treat is IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which is a much more common problem. At the risk of TMI, I will share that I struggled with IBS for a few years, and I believe in my case it was from eating cafeteria food all throughout college. I ate such a high concentration of cafeteria food versus regular, wholesome, healthy food that I developed IBS, and I had to treat it with medication for a few years. Fortunately for me, once I graduated, I moved out. I started eating regular food that I prepared for myself at home, just normal food. The IBS gradually faded away, got better, and I didn't have to take medication anymore. But for millions of people out there, this is not such a simple fix. This is something that they struggle with for years and even decades. The total addressable market for IBS patients is much, much larger. It's 10 to 15% of the American population, which translates to 20 to 45 million people that are struggling with this. Now we're talking about a large pool of people that this medication can really help. And then that's not it. There's also chronic fatigue syndrome. It's estimated between under 1 million people and 2.5 million people struggle with chronic fatigue syndrome in America. And there may be other illnesses that over time are identified that this medication may really help folks deal with by suppressing the symptoms that they're dealing with. So now we're talking about a total addressable market of somewhere between 30 and 50 million Americans alone. Now that is a great market for this company to go after, trying to reach these patients and help them. But also from the stories that I've heard, this is a medication that they will never want to do without. So talk about a sticky product, right? So as I said, the company IPO'd in December of 2020. And did the company have revenue yet? Nope. They were a money-losing company because they're in the testing phase. They can't actually make sales yet. They are spending money to get to the starting line one day. And these trials are very expensive. This is a very risky business to be in. It makes it a speculative stock. And when I first began looking at the company, there weren't any analysts that really were following the stock. Even today, in July of 2022, 18 months after they went IPO, there's still only 3 analysts that cover the stock, and it's a very unknown stock. And I would expect that it will be that way until they make some noise by getting some approvals and getting some sales and really starting to prove that they can make money at it.
Alright, during the editing part of this video, I realized that I failed to mention something. The reason that I've never talked about this stock before, even when I was revealing my full portfolio, that is my main account in the M1 Finance platform. And the truth is, Virios is not available on M1. That's how speculative and kind of risky and small this stock really is. So the only place that I own it is in Robinhood. And you can see from this screenshot that I only have a small amount in this, over $360 at this point. But it's interesting, this stock is very volatile and it's actually doing better than I expected at this point right now, because it's still a pre-revenue company. Now, back to the original video.
So I made the choice to go ahead and start investing with the little information that I do know, the anecdotal information that I have heard, the stories that I have heard, and over time I may increase that position, or I may just decide to hold what I have and see how things play out. But the idea here is that it's an opportunity that I very easily could have missed. In fact, to be honest, after the first conversation I had with my friend, I looked up the stock and I kind of dismissed it. But a few weeks later, I got to thinking about it and I did a little research and I started thinking about it some more. I asked him a few more questions and I decided this was something that if I only invested a small amount in, I could wait to see how it played out, because sometimes in these opportunities, if you're willing to be patient, the return may be absolutely astounding when the results do come through, as long as everything does play out the way that they're hoping. So the main question for you is, what opportunities do you see? Are you willing to share them with me? I'd love to hear about them in the comments below. Are you investing in them? Is it a public company that you can buy stock in? I'd love to know. As investors, we should always have our eyes open, looking for the opportunities. Till next time, have a great day.